Welcome back to the Leadership Forum, a space where corporate leaders share insightful takes on the human side of ingenuity. I'm Saquib Vali, explorer. Say hi to the future. The leader with us today is Andrew Reydman, partner at Torinit Technologies. Andrew is an outcome-oriented leader with over 25 years of experience, working with organizations to prosper in technology, digital product development, and digital transformation. Welcome, Andrew, and thank you for taking time out from your transformative schedule.
Thanks, Will. Great to meet you. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the podcast.
So, Andrew, let's let our listeners hear in your voice how you wish to introduce yourself to them, weaving in your diverse cross-industry experience in digital transformation.
Thanks. Yeah. So I'm Andrew Reydman. I'm a partner at Torinit currently. I've had the opportunity to work for the last 20 years in consulting across the globe and across various industries, including retail, consumer services, financial services. I've also had the opportunity during the pandemic to work on solution that's close to my heart around tackling mental health. And so it's been a great experience. I'm super excited to actually join Torinit. What really attracted me there is the outstanding people, how purpose-driven they are, and the track record that they have around working with their clients, and not only success in working with their clients, but that they often work on some of the most important initiatives with their clients. And the success and failure of those initiatives, really impact, the outcome of the company going forward. And so I think, to me, to be a partner in that is very rewarding. Previously worked for a large organization, now working in a smaller organization. What's exciting to me about that is the impact that I feel I can have, both to the Torinit itself, as well as the clients that we work with.
I love that, Andrew. I mean, I think that's a great insight right in there, right? It's not just about technology transformation or digital transformation, it's about the people. And how their work, their processes, how they flourish with the transformation. That's really nicely said. Andrew, one of the human conditions that we at Say Hi to the Future explore is find your voice. And I will go out on a limb and say no two digital transformations are the same. Is that a fair statement, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Every organization is different and unique, both in terms of their own internal culture, as well as the set of problems that we're trying to solve. And because of that, every digital transformation is different.
Yeah, and what I've gotten to know in our brief interactions together is you all at Tornit, you deeply partner with executives and boards to
Yeah.
envision and deliver on their growth mandates. So I'm curious, what is Tornit's process for uncovering insights that inform how each of the client's use case is bespoke?
We have a process called envisioning, which we go through with our clients. I'm a big believer in really understanding the problem we're trying to solve before actually starting to think about what the solutions need to be. And so I think it was Einstein said it once, if I had an hour to spend on a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes on thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solution. And so we kind of adopt that mindset, and we do a pretty deep audit of our clients to understand what are the set of problems we're trying to solve, and then oftentimes trying to get to the root of what the problem is before we start talking about, oh, let's use this technology or that solution or apply it in this way or that way. We find that that's super important because I find oftentimes organizations want to jump to a solution quickly, so that way they believe that they'll see results more quickly. But oftentimes we end up we solve a problem, we don't solve the most important problems, which are actually contributing to or hindering kind of the success that they're trying to achieve.
So, Andrew, you said something which is very fascinating, and I get the concept behind, hey, deeply understand the problem before you just start coming up with solutions. I got that, and I
Yeah.
think the process is bang on. How do you manage expectations with clients? Because this is all part of ingenuity, right? How do you manage expectations with clients? Because, like you said, the client feels they're paying you to get a solution, right?
Hmm.
While you're saying, I want to spend time on understanding the problem, I'm sure there's a bit of a gridlock in there and some wheels grind. And so what specifically about your process makes the client have a bit more patience and keep sticking to having conversations on the problem before you get to the solution?
Yeah, I mean, we often present a framework of how we're going to address, how we're going to get to that outcome that, the clients are asking for. And so, we have a kind of three-step framework. One is, as I mentioned, is all about envisioning. The first step is all about envisioning. The second step is our execution, and the last step is around enrichment. Once they kind of understand that, there is this process and there's value in each step, once we decide to engage in an envisioning, engagement, then it's all about, like, that's the focus, understanding the problem, ideating, innovating on possible solutions once we understand the problem, and then coming up with a roadmap of solutions with them over a period of time to help them realize the outcome that they're ultimately trying to get to.
Hmm.
So it's about framing it and then focusing, through that process. There is push on, like, can we spend less time in envisioning? Can we go directly to solutioning? And I think once, we help them talk to other clients that have gone through the process, and then they sort of realize the benefits. That's one way. Have them talk to other customers that we've worked with before, through the process. And then once actually they're in it, they actually I just had some workshops earlier this week, with a new client. And after the first week, they immediately realize the benefit of what we're doing, because we're challenging their own assumptions about what they think the solution needs to be.
Sure, sure. And so, you said you have a three-step process. There's envisioning, there's execution, then there's enriching, right?
Yeah.
Um, and where do you think the most amount of insight comes out that helps you make it so bespoke for the use case that you're going with? Do you think it's in the envisioning part and the definition of the problem? Do you think it's in the kind of solution you're putting together, or is it in the enriching part?
It's actually throughout, right?
Ah, okay.
I guess the principle is that we don't actually think we have the right solution ever. It's a continuous process of feedback and, improvement that we go through. And so the more when we start, we start at almost like a blank piece of paper, like we don't know, right? We have maybe a problem statement, we have a vision of where the organization wants to be in 3 to 5 years, but how do you get there, right? We have a very kind of collaborative, iterative process that we go through each of those, big kind of framework stages. So we iterate, innovate, in envisioning. We have a roadmap, then we go into execution on a set of solutions, and then even as we are developing them, we follow an agile process of continuous improvement, and always working on the things that value most. Because the reality is that, time is passing, right? The environment in which the organization is in is actually changing. People in the organization might change, priorities might change. And so, being able to have a process that's adapting to all the change as we are progressing is important, because, the solution that you thought of, 3 months ago isn't necessarily going to be the solution that you need today. And so, that adaptable, collaborative, iterative way of that we work helps to kind of address that throughout the entire life cycle of our participation or engagement with our clients, or maybe I'll call it partnering with our clients.
It's one of my past mentors and coaches and bosses at Procter& and Gamble used to say about how we would innovate and stuff, that the process needs to be mentally tight but
Hmm.
physically fluid,
Okay.
right? So it needs to be focused in terms of what you're trying to get to, but the actual physical stuff that happens in between, like you're saying, you have enough agility in there that whatever comes out may be very different from what you'd gone thinking going in. But that doesn't mean that from a mental framework standpoint, you said you've got a three-step process. It's a very rigorous process. So
Right.
there's discipline in there. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
All right.
It's not chaos. It's
Sure, 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 sure.
it's focused. Absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. So I'd love to sort of switch gears a bit and say, I'd love to get your leadership take on ingenuity. And more importantly, the human side of ingenuity as it relates to you, your organization's success, your client's success. What's your take? When has it worked well? When has it not? What have you learned? And the reason why I think this is so pertinent is because of the earlier thing that you said about your digital transformation projects or implementations, your partnerships with the clients
Yeah.
are as much about people as they are about what you're doing, in terms of a process or a physical product.
Ingenuity, the way I look at it, maybe you can let me know what your perspective is, but it's all about how do you drive innovative, change or new ways of thinking, new ways of doing. Is that what you mean by ingenuity in this
That is exactly what I mean by ingenuity, and I mean, obviously that's what it is.
Yeah.
What I'd love to get your take is on what's the human implication of it, right? Because in the end, the people who are doing all of this, bringing about the change, new way of doing things, is being done either coming to that solution by humans, or frankly, or our fellow human beings, or the people who have to actually execute that are our fellow human beings.
I guess the way I think about it is one major impact is for the people that are engaged in the process of innovation, like the process of innovation, the process of flexing their ingenuity muscle, right? And how do and those people need to be, you know, like the behaviors of those people are all impacted in that
Mhm.
scenario, versus people that, for example, aren't in it, they're in a very rigorous process-driven environment where it's more about, precision and like efficiency, rather than thinking about how to drive, change and innovation, right? There's two different sort of contexts in which people would perform in. So the behaviors for people kind of in the innovation side of things, flexing their ingenuity, is really around like they need to be very curious and like passionate about the topic that we're into it, so that they're very inquisitive, not taking things for granted, asking why. I have this approach of like, let's ask why 5 times and figure out what the real reason is behind things, right? So you have to have that. You also need to be very empathetic and understanding, because oftentimes you are driving innovation and change for something that you may not actually, at the end of the day, know, like do yourself or have done yourself, or will be doing. It often involves a lot of discussions with people that are doing the current thing that you're trying to innovate. And so having kind of like true empathy and understanding, and taking yourself out of your context, like for example, my context as an outside consultant, third party, and into the context of our clients, or the folks that are actually will be the people that actually be impacted by the change that we're driving. It also requires a heightened level of like collaboration and communication, and trying to be, so it's like your ability to collaborate with others, which means really listening and really trying to communicate clearly about, and communicate, maybe adapting your communication so that way the person across the table hears and understands the same thing that you're trying to actually elicit, is really important. And then I guess, lastly, it's also important, I think, for everyone to feel that they can bring, their individual experience and perspectives to the table. So creating an environment, or creating an environment where people that are participating in this innovation process, are not censoring themselves. So that's like the group involved.
Mhm.
And then obviously then there's the group that and then there's the group of people that are impacted by the change and innovation that you're bringing. For that group of people, like those people, the people that are most successful there are those that embrace change and are very adaptable. Oftentimes, what I try to do is bring as many of those people into the innovation process so that they feel part of the solution, and it's not like we like we are trying to force change or force something that they don't want onto them, but more of bringing them along and making them part of the process of innovation.
Very cool. I think that's a fairly well orchestrated process that you've got, right? Now, tell me something. I'm sure there are times where, and I'm sure in every use case, the ones who are, and I love the whole aspect of behavior, because ingenuity is not just bringing a change in the process, it's also bringing a change in behavior. Either you're designing it with the people, or frankly, when you're implementing it, you need to have that. Not everyone is uniform and comes along for the ride exactly at the same pace. Do you have any sort of examples or thoughts in a project that you might have done where it went swimmingly well because of something you did as part of the process, so that it got implemented and adopted fairly quickly across the board? Or do you have an example where, oh my God, that didn't happen, but now you've learned from it, and you build that into your process going forward?
I think the common themes on when it works well is when you have broad support across the organization for what you're trying to achieve. When you have a diverse set of teams or different team members part of the process to that part of the process to innovate, and there is a very well-defined and open means of communication throughout the process.
Got
I
it.
think I think if you have those things, you will achieve success
Okay.
more often than not. And then some of the challenges, some of the commonalities around challenges is around, if you have a team that is very afraid of failure, so they don't want to take risks. And so oftentimes, you're sort of making compromises and don't actually end up, solving the problem that you intend to solve. So the kind of a team, if they're under the pressure of feel of failure, that's one area. When there's a lack of diversity, on your team and you don't have great representation, and then if you're in an environment that is, very rigid and hierarchical, and because of that, they're not flexible and adaptable to the change that's coming.
Understand. Let's shift our conversation to, Tornit, your organization. You're a partner, you're a leader in your organization. So how about leadership? What do you look for, groom for, and nurture in the people that you hire at Tornit?
I mean, I look for a variety of things, obviously, but I think what differentiates us and sort of the people that I look for are people that love to learn. Like, I mean, I guess baseline. Let me take a step back. Baseline expectation is that, whatever role we're hiring them for, they're very qualified, and experts in terms of, that the domain in which we're expecting them to perform the role in. But I think your question is more around like other qualities of that. Like one is they love to learn.
Hmm.
I think especially in technology, and more so in business, things are constantly changing, and actually they're changing at an ever increasing pace. And if you don't love to learn, you will very quickly fall behind. And so people that love to learn, that are curious, that want to continue to expand their understanding of whatever domain they're in is super important. Two, I'll say communicate and operate with clarity. So what do I mean by that? All the things I talked about before in terms of like innovation, communication is key, and for all those reasons I talked about, and then operating with clarity is also important. So your behaviors need to signal your intentions. They need to they should not confuse people in terms of like, oh, you're saying one thing and doing another. So the communication and operating clarity kind of go together for me. And so I kind of evaluate examples of either the, like the opposite of that, in terms of they're clearly like operate, they say one thing and do another, like that's to me is an immediate, not going to be a good fit. And then looking at the way and the style in which they communicate is very important. And then three, they are adaptable and ambitious. And I think those things need to kind of come together as well, because you know adaptability for the constant change that I talked about, that's obviously one, but ambitious, from their own perspective, they want to achieve more. They want to, take more responsibility. They want to grow, outside of their comfort zone. And so, they have that, ambition to do that, but they're also understand that they need to change to be able to achieve that, and they have the adaptability to be able to perform at, those higher levels, wider level, like increase the breadth and depth of what they do.
Really? All right. I'm sure our listeners have quite a bit to think about from the answers you've from the way you've expressed that. Andrew, how about you? You also are part of quite a few of the forums where you meet other leaders, and part of your client conversations is you meet other leaders. If you were to say, hey, in this changing environment that you're speaking about, if you were to give advice to other leaders, what would be a couple of things that you might say to some of the other ones who are listening on to this podcast?
I've read a bunch of books around leadership and sort of kind of continuously educating myself on leadership and trying to do applying different things. One book really stands out in my mind in terms of that's really influenced me over the years. It's Drive by Daniel Pink. I don't know if you've had an
I
opportunity
have.
to
I
read.
have.
And when I read that book, that really opened my mind in terms of like what really motivates people.
The
Uh,
autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
yeah, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Exactly, exactly. And so, and before that, I never really, I always believed that, what motivated people was prestige or like all these extrinsic factors, right? And I think there obviously is some short-term motivation related to that. So if you're looking for like, a short-term outcome, you can probably leverage, those types of incentives to motivate people. But I think if you're looking to build a sustainable, growth-oriented organization, the intrinsic motivation is what you really should be focusing on.
Got it.
That's number one. And then I think the other is, from a culture standpoint, or like not just from a culture, but like culturally, within your how you interact with people, like you really need to understand that, like create the culture where it's not just like, not just me, it's always about we. It's always about the group. It's always about the group success and how, and your success is my success, your failure is my failure, and sort of having that team mentality that we are all in this together. And so, one of the ways you kind of also can do that is, connecting, the individual's success with, the leader's success, like my success and the success of the organization. And so if everyone explicitly kind of understands that our success and failures are all connected, and then you kind of get this we mentality, which, or team culture that will help to, I think, help in very help as you, when things are great, things are usually great, things are going well, but when you encounter challenges, and that really is what stresses your team and stresses your culture. If you have that we culture, that'll help you to get through.
One of the things that we used to have as part of our purpose, values, and principles at Procter& Gamble was there was a statement in there which said the interest of the employee and the corporation is inseparable,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is exactly where you're coming at, and I love that. I think Andrew, all the tons of insights that you've shared with us, we thank you. I think it was a privilege and an honor for us to have you with us today. Our listeners are going to be extremely excited about what they will listen from you. So thanks for sharing your insights. Our listeners would love to hear more from you. We will tag you and Torinit in our show notes. Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thank you.